Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Simon Brazier, the driving force with the Alderney Sports Foundation. We're going to take a quick look at some of the things happening on the Alderney sports scene and then talk about the foundation itself and also Simon's hopes for better things to come in the swimming department. So we leave that in. That's the hook for the end of it. Hi, how are you?
Good to see you, Tony.
Good to
Yes.
see you too, Simon. Um, I thought, it'd be a bit of fun to just sort of have a look at what's available on the island. And bearing in mind we've only got 2,000 people here, it's incredible. I've identified 18 sports or activities. And, just running down boxing, angling, sailing, tennis and paddle, where you come in a little bit in terms of your support from the foundation. And then we go on to petanque, rugby, squash, shooting, football, cricket, golf, running and walking, island games, martial arts, table tennis, snooker, Pilates, and I don't know whether you call it a sport, darts.
No, I
Might,
think
might
Mr.
have to
Luke
be.
Littler would certainly think it's a sport. So, having just been honoured
So
by the
we're
King.
giving the benefit of the doubt there, I think, from that point of
Yes.
view. But it's truly incredible, isn't it, in terms of what we've got here? 3.5 miles long, mile and a half wide, and all of these activities available.
But I think it's fantastic, and I've always said, obviously the Sports Foundation focuses on young people, but there's not many schools in the world where you can walk out the school gates and, as a child, walk pretty safely to a sailing club, a cricket club, a football club, and many of the other activities, paddle, tennis that you mentioned there. And this all comes down to the hard work of volunteers. I mean,
Mm.
all sports pretty much are run by volunteers, both on the mainland but also in Alderney. And there is a lot that people can participate in. I suppose my main thing is to try and make sure that we're getting children playing sport as much as possible and getting that love for sport that many people who come to the island later on in life and do a variety of those activities also can do.
Yeah, very true. I mean, one thing that shines as far as the school's concerned is that it's still got a playing field, which a lot of schools in the UK don't have anymore.
Well, it's got a very good playing field. I also think they've got a fantastic phys ed teacher in Robert Kirkland now. I think he is really taken on that role and is doing brilliant things on that front. Um, we've just had the school over at the Guernsey, well, it's the Channel Island, it's the Guernsey Youth Games. So
Hmm.
ourselves and the Trips Fund paid for the children's transport across there. So we had the years 5 and 6, I think it was, went over there and participated in a whole range of sports in Guernsey as well. And we've had coaches coming over to Alderney to help that. So there's been plenty going on. So we're trying to keep things ticking over.
We must give Jim Phillips a mention, mustn't we, about the Trips Fund? The
No,
amount of
look,
work that guy puts into it is nobody's business.
no, look. I think Jim and what he's done there is fantastic. We now work increasingly hand in hand together,
Yeah.
and we talk to each other about where we the games in Guernsey for the children is a great example of where we've done that. So what Jim has done there and the opportunities he provides to both adults and children through what he's done is fantastic. And actually, that's how the third sector, as they call it, the charitable sector, should work, which is in partnership with each other rather than just trying to do things in isolation. So that's what we're trying to do there.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Simon, from that point of view, and he does deserve a lot of credit. Now, coming along then, what's the situation with regard to the foundation at the present time? Financially, suffering a little bit like every other charity is.
Well, look, we launched in 2018, so we're 7 years old now, and over that period, we have spent uh, nearly £400,000 on sport in Alderney. Just under half of that was building two paddle tennis courts, which I think most people would say have been a roaring success. And while while we're on that subject, the foundation was able to help facilitate, build those courts, put the funding in place. But without Edward Hill, and I'm going to be very explicit because he deserves the praise, without Edward's sort of tireless energy on what he's done there, to now have a club on the island with over 200 members. When I come out to Albany, I was there a few weeks ago, I'm coming next week, to go down there and see on a Sunday or Saturday morning the kids playing tennis and paddle, what he has done there. That is a blueprint for what we're trying to achieve in Albany. So
Yeah. The interesting thing being, Simon, that the tennis club had got down to about 10 paying members before
yeah,
he came on the scene. So he did a really good job. But obviously, it's the paddle that's put a new dimension into it.
yeah, but I think it's meant that people are down there and playing, and I think there's more people playing tennis actually because
Well,
of it
that's
as well.
good. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
just taking a step back, we had a very, very generous benefactor early on who's no longer on the island. And so actually our reserves are quite depleted
Yes.
at this point. And there's a lot that we can still do. We'll come on to the swimming pool in a minute
Yeah.
or at the end. But it is a bit of a call to arms that, for people that, we are set up as a charity. We're highly regulated. We've got a lot of health and safety and governance in place. And I think we have proven, my point was over the 7 years that we have proven that we've been able to do things. So just to give you a few examples, if you'll humour me, Tony, we've put over 70 children through in year 4. Every child at the school will do a week sailing course. That's been going on for 7 years now, which means they will do a full week of sailing paid for by the Sports Foundation and introduce them to that sport, which has meant that since then we have paid and supported. So we subsidise every local child to go on the summer sailing camps, and we've subsidised well over 100 children to go on those camps. And actually what's great for me is if you look at the sailing courses last year, well more than 50% of the children on those courses are now local children. I remember when we took over, you were lucky to have 1 or 2 locals on that course, and that course was really for holiday makers. And actually to see that change happening, and also with some of the Alderney pupils coming back, coaching, training on that course. I mean, people like, and also Danny Woodnut, for example, is one of the great coaches on that course. So the sailing has been a real success for us, working with the club there. Elsewhere, football. I mean, the football, I've always said, there's been this generation that has gone through of very good sportsmen, a lot of them who also play in the cricket team. I mean, I won't mention them all, but the Concannons, Andrew and John, you've got Blondie, all these people who have, but actually the next generation coming through. And to see, I put my team, the Rioteers, were over playing Alderney a few weeks ago, and to see John House's 2 sons playing in the same team as John, I'd like to say almost as good as John now. I hope he doesn't hear this, but to see that next generation coming through playing like a sport like cricket is fantastic. So that is what we're trying to achieve. So back to the finances is that it's a bit of a call to arms, and we will be being more vocal through into the summer, trying to get people. It's much better for us to have people donating £5 a month forever than to get £100 once off. And to give us that certainty of what we can do in terms of help continue to fund getting the children. Perhaps there is one other thing financially which I'm happy to share with you, which is that actually one of the things has been, as part we set out a sports action plan a few years ago, and one of that was the partnership between the Sports Foundation and the third sector with the school and also with the states. And the states have agreed a £10,000 grant to the Sports Foundation, which we will be using to take children off island to play sport and to bring coaches onto island. And so, that is great. The states have recognised that there is a need. It's almost an economic need as well to encourage young families here. So I'd like to say thank you to the states who are donating that money, at least this year, as an initial trial to see if that works, to help us get children off island and bring coaches onto island to encourage more of that. So there are things definitely happening, but I'd like to build up that sort of that base of people who donate every year, which allows us to have the certainty to be able to go into the community and do things.
Is there anything likely to come from Guernsey Education, bearing in mind the school's involvement?
So one of the real positives was, and actually to be fair, thank you to Alex Snowden and Steve Roberts, who were the states members in Alderney at the time, the Guernsey Action Plan for Sports didn't mention Alderney at all initially, and we lobbied quite hard with Steve and Alex. And actually, in that sports action plan, it explicitly states that sport is seen as a beneficial activity that but it has benefits for both from both a health and an education perspective. And hence, Guernsey deputies voted 37-0 that they would, as part of that sports action plan, that they saw the benefit of it and that they would look to help support Alderney in bringing coaches to the island, helping with travel, and also in terms of ultimately providing a sports hall and a swimming pool. So that has been voted through in Guernsey. So there is political goodwill in Guernsey. And actually, one of the things is that we work very closely with the Guernsey Sports Commission, which Jeremy Frith, who in particular, and so we get a lot of support, which would normally cost a lot of money in order to implement. And we'll talk a bit more about this with the swimming pool, actually, when we come on to that. So actually, and they are mainly funded by Guernsey, and they have agreed to support Alderney, despite it not originally being in their mandate to do that. So actually, slightly vicariously via the Sports Commission, Guernsey do actually support Alderney, and the Sports Commission are fantastic. They've done a lot of things to enable us to do things. And for example, the Cricket World Cup coming to Alderney was one of the activities which went to the school. The kids at the school saw the Cricket World Cup. These are the things that we can do with Guernsey. So yes.
So that's good news. If you were to be in the position to put in a sports hall, which presumably would encompass swimming, squash, a lot of other indoor things, that makes it quite problematical, doesn't it? In terms of the fact there's no leisure centre anywhere in the UK that actually gets anywhere near to breaking even. Have you got a good plan for that, Simon?
Yeah, look, I think I'll be frank. In 2021, when we did the feasibility study, which is on our website, it was a very detailed feasibility study around a swimming pool and a sports hall, and we had some very, very good advisors advising on that. It was going to cost a lot of money. And at that point in time, I felt there was the political goodwill to maybe source significant cash from Guernsey. I think, unfortunately, that has passed. And the runway, and rightly so, is probably the priority in terms of the state's focus on where they can have that communication with Guernsey. Having said that, and therefore a sports hall is probably down the road. That is not today's issue. Having said that, a swimming pool is something that I believe we can have operational by this time next year. And I believe, we can come. I spend a bit more time on the sports hall. And by the way, the cost of putting sports halls in, it won't necessarily have a squash. We've already got a squash court, but these are not complicated buildings. They are, and increasingly there are providers in the UK who are building effectively, purpose-built buildings for sports halls, which are not that expensive. We're still talking significant money. But the swimming pool is one where I do believe, with political will, and I've always said this, that we could find a way through. And I would say that the recent change of states members, and I'll be very blunt about this, has meant that there has been a wind of change in a positive direction to get something done. And I presented to the State of Alderney a few weeks ago, and I've been on this swimming pool case for some time, and I would say that we are now finding a way through. And I can't provide details because we haven't agreed anything, but I would say that the new states members and some of the existing states members who are still there are certainly talking the right language, thinking in a positive and constructive way in order to get this done. I mean, this is a running sore.
It's dreadful. It's dreadful. 7 years.
And with all these sports, the Alderney Swimming Pool trustees, thank you very much. These are people who put their time and effort to raise the money and to get where we got to.
Yeah.
Yes, there were issues, okay? We know what those issues were, but there is still significant goodwill from those trustees to make this work. Secondly, there is goodwill, and a lot of that money went into a building. Now, what we have actually, which people fail to understand, is there is a building there which has some issues in relation to putting a pool in as it was originally designed. But there is a building which I believe is probably worth between £500,000 and £1 million as it stands today. If you wanted to build that building, a watertight building it is, on that site is a lot of money. So the donations that people made to that building have not gone to waste. They have created a building. My job, and as a lobbyist for the Sports Foundation, is to find a way through. Is it that we find a way of putting a pool in that building? Or do we take the value of that building and build a pool maybe somewhere else? We're looking at that, but I actually do think, Tony, without going into much detail, that there is a chance that this time next year I'll be sitting here and we will have a pool either being built or built. And I have not been able to say that for the last 7 years. So I'm slightly putting my neck on the line here, but I would say that the coordination of the Guernsey Sports Commission, the Sports Foundation, third parties who are involved, including the swimming pool trustees, but most importantly, the States of Alderney. Without the States of Alderney, this cannot happen. They own the lease of that building, and I think that the States members, to their credit, are engaging in a very constructive way right now, where I think we will find a way through.
Structurally, that building just couldn't take the weight or the strain. Is that the...
Yeah, this is public information. People can read it.
Yeah.
The reports are on our website and our feasibility study. The
building itself, give us a few ideas there, please.
Yes, the building itself is absolutely fine. Yeah. It is the building itself is structurally integral. Yeah, has structural integrity to it. It's got good walls. It's got a very good roof. It is watertight. It is a building that you could say tomorrow we will take and do something else and fit it out. Zero problem. The issue was that putting a swimming pool into a building has all sorts of issues, and particularly around the environment of the swimming pool, because it's warm, there's lots of water, there's lots of chlorine, etc. And also you are putting a large 20-meter by 2-meter swimming pool. You can do the maths. You're putting significant tonnage of water on that. And if you read the structural engineers reports, unfortunately, the concrete that was used and the reinforcement of that concrete was not done to a standard which would give the confidence to a structural engineer to sign off that building as it stands to be filled with water. Okay. Having said that, there are options which are effectively putting a pool inside a pool, which is not using the existing structural integrity of the building, but to put something in there which could enable us to put a pool in that building. That is a possibility. But you have to weigh that up against, and therefore the pros, I'll be completely blunt. What is the pros of using that building? There are many. It is on the school site, so it enables children to walk straight from a classroom and do swimming lessons in there, Secondly, it has secondary access for public, which means they don't have to go through the school, which is a big health and safety concern. Thirdly, you have a pool inside. It could be used all year round, which is a big benefit on Alderney. Fourthly, it's fully plumbed. It has change rooms. It has electricity. It has other rooms that you could use. And it is central to town, and there's options potentially of putting parking alongside. So it has lots of benefits to that building. One of the cons of that is structurally, it's not as simple as one initially may have thought because of the historical issues. Secondly, it is more expensive to run an indoor pool than an outdoor pool. And therefore, the operating model has to be thought through quite carefully. And thirdly, it is quite a big. It is a big building in terms of the M&E, the mechanical engineering, to do a pool of that size. Whereas our original proposal, you have a large outdoor pool with a smaller indoor pool. So there are pros and cons of that site, but we've done a lot of the work. Some very good people have been involved, and I think we just need to do a little bit more work. But as I said, there's one thing that has been missing all this time, which was the political goodwill of the States of Alderney to solve this problem. That, I believe, has changed.
Yeah, well, that's good news, because I think, without getting too political, the previous states have sat on their hands on this one, and it has been argued that it should never have taken place in the first place. It should have been put on another site. And, the fact that kids have been deprived for 7 years or more in terms of having swimming lessons, I think is, pretty disgraceful, actually.
No, it is. I mean, okay, use the word disgrace. I can't not
I
use.
can. I'm not expecting you to use
No,
words
I know.
like
I think
that.
it's. I
I'm
said
in a privileged position.
it's a running sore.
Yes.
But when I set up the foundation, our idea was just to be a grant-giving organisation. I seem to have spent more of my time doing politics, but but that's actually what charities do. You lobby.
Yeah. Of
I
course you
wear
do.
the hat of the
Yeah.
Sports
Yeah.
Foundation,
Yeah.
and you see where there is a way through. And we're very lucky. We've got, if you look at the feasibility study group, it includes Duncan Goodhue, who probably knows more about swimming pool construction, and that's what he's done for many years.
We should do, shouldn't he?
Yes, exactly. But he's very connected in that
Yes.
world. We had
Yes.
Brian Tyrrell from Tyrrell Downton in Guernsey, who
Yeah.
one of the biggest architects doing infrastructure products, particularly in the States. We had Mark McKenzie, structural engineer. We had Steve Sharman, who works at the Guernsey Sports Commission, who has been involved in more infrastructure projects for sport in the UK than many, many people. So we had a group of people there who have significant experience in doing this that we have, who are still prepared to help the states, and hence those conversations are happening right now. And we do feel that we found potentially a way through.
Okay. So,
like all these things, until you've actually done it, don't come out and say it. I'm just giving a hint to the fact that 3 cheers to the States of Alderney for now grasping this nettle.
Yeah, agreed. So, assuming that the existing building is deemed not to be suitable, have you, without telling us where it is, have you actually got an alternative site?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put the cart before the horse as
No.
to where all
But
the options are. But clearly,
equally, I think people need to know that we're talking positive things here rather
no.
than
So positively, I mean,
yeah.
and again, I mean, there are options, and then people will say, oh, you can't put it there because of this and this and this. But the reality is that structurally, you could, for example, put the pool at the tennis club. You already have infrastructure in place for the club. You've got parking. You could put it down there. The pool could go at the Arsenal next to the football club. Again, you've got infrastructure. You've got sports facilities. You've got there. You could build an outdoor pool at the school. There's a possibility of putting it there. This is only, I'm not, before everyone shouts and says, oh, if you actually look at the land use plan, Bray Common, which is effectively next to the moorings where the petanque court is, that land is actually reserved for sports facilities for the school. Now, I'm not saying you'd want to put it there, but again, an outdoor pool could go down on Bray Common. I'm not saying those seem to be the sort of main options. School, tennis club, Arsenal, Bray Common.
Yeah.
But we are looking at all the options because clearly there are pros of trying to get a pool inside a building that could be used throughout the year. So there is balancing those things up. But there is, as I said, I think there is the political goodwill, there is potentially the funding in place, and to get something done.
With the existing building, then, can you do a trade-off here? Can you say to Guernsey, we'll let you have the building? I mean, I know I'm making this difficult for you because obviously the trustees are involved, but could the trustees, say to Guernsey, we'll sell you the building?
They don't own the building. The states of Alderney.
Right, okay. So that's always been the case?
Yes.
So what would you do with that building?
I'm trying not to go to where I don't want to go here, Tony, which is... I'm giving you all the options. I don't want people to
no. But I'm just saying.
For that building. We've got 3 choices, actually. Yeah. If you're the States of Alderney, you have 3 choices. You could put a swimming pool in it.
Yeah.
For its original purpose.
Yeah.
You could say we're putting a swimming pool elsewhere. You could just take out it's a very, if you go, it's a very nice building, and you could fit it out and you could use it for anything. You could. It's not quite big enough for a sports hall, but you could use it as a community building where you could do choirs, you could do theatre, you could do drop-in, you could do all sorts of things in that building.
How about a cinema?
You could put a cinema in that building. There's 100 things you could do inside.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just throwing that into the mix.
Or you could sell the building and you could crystallise a certain amount of value. I'm not sure who would want to buy that building. It's on the school site. I don't think strategically you would sell a building that's sitting in that strategic position in Alderney. But there are things that can be done. So I think these are all options that can be looked at. But it goes back to what I think is a big positive that everyone has forgotten, which is a lot of people think that their money that they donated, me, you, everyone included, and By the way, we still have the tiles, and the tiles will be on whichever swimming pool it goes
Yep.
to.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, yeah, and I've looked through them all, and I recognise all the names. And but that money that was donated, actually, and the money that the states put in, has created a building that has value, that is more than was donated at the time on any measure.
Yeah.
So this was not a, and hence for me, I think the key to unpicking this has been to allow people to realise that there is something of significant value there, and therefore, and it's owned by the States of Alderney. So how are we going to use that building that is sitting there, that is watertight, that could be used for one of a variety of things, including a swimming pool?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
once you get that in your head, not you,
Yes.
but one gets that in one's head, it's like, geez, actually, right, we've created value. Let's make sure we now use it.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not just about sport. This is about economic enablement. This is making sure that young families come to Albany, and one of the key things is a swimming pool.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Um, so looking at it from the point of view of present plans, um, we're talking in terms of an outside pool.
No. So
No.
just to remind you, Tony, the options for a swimming pool in Alderney are probably to build an indoor pool, probably in the existing building,
Yeah.
because there is a building there, if possible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the costs of building a building such as that, which I said is probably in the tune of 500 to 1,000 to a million, compared to building an outside pool, you would build an outside pool. So the reality is we can either get a pool in that building, or it would be an outside pool. I mean, I'm for those who know me, know, for example, like the paddle tennis court, no one knew about the paddle tennis court, and no one spotted it going through planning. And we only announced it when we were about to break ground on it. So all I'm saying is, for me to be here quite publicly saying that I feel there is a way through is quite a big step. And importantly, I don't want this, and importantly, it's because the States of Alderney are now working in a constructive way with other actors such as ourselves to get this done. This is a priority.
Good, because the children deserve it. One thing that is of interest, I was a very good friend with John K. Mowat when he was president, and he was an advocate here, and a great swimmer, by the way, because I think he and Paul Clark are the only people that have ever swum from Alderney to France and made it. John always felt that a tidal pool would be useful. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've looked again. People have looked at these things. I mean, that could be a possibility down the line. The reality is if you read our feasibility study, a pool, whether indoor or outdoor, that is chlorinated, that that has an environment which is not just about someone like John or Paul swimming lots of lengths, although that's important, which enables mothers and pregnant mothers and toddlers, young children to learn to swim, to have that sort of environment on Alderney, to allow, which has a lift to allow old people into the pool. These are the things where tidal pools are fine, but their ability to do those sorts of things, which I think are actually the most pressing. The pools and the Johns can go and swim around the island still, but actually this pool's priority is around people in need, whether it's for health reasons, it's to learn to swim. That's the priority.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
So I think, Simon, it'd be useful if you gave us details of the website so that people can have a look at the various points that you've made in this interview.
Yeah. So easiest thing is just to Google Alderney Sports Foundation. It's the first thing that will come up.
Okay.
And then you can go onto our website, and I'm just going to open it now just to remind myself so I don't get this wrong. But if you're on the website, you go straight in. At the top, you can see that across the top it says About Us. So there'll be a lot. There's a section all about us.
Yeah.
It has the Alderney Sports Action Plan, which is our long-term plan for what we're trying to do. It has things about the Friends of the Sports Foundation, to people who donate, and it says how to donate.
Yeah.
Therefore, you click on that button, and it will show you how to donate. You can also apply for a grant if you're an organisation in Alderney. And then if you want to see the feasibility study about the swimming pool, you just go to the news and updates. And in there, you'll see the thing about the opening of the paddle court. But just scroll down, and in there, you'll see States of Alderney backs the ASF swimming pool and sports hall feasibility study. And you can go in there, it has the study, it has the structural engineers reports, it is all in there.
And that, I think, from everybody's point of view, would be a useful view. I think people should look at that. No
Yeah,
doubt
I mean
about
that
that.
study is I mean, what I would say is that one must remember that the horse is slightly bolted on the on the sports hall, but in there it gives you a very good background to what has happened with the swimming pool. If
Yeah,
you are
good, good,
interested.
good. Well, I think we've just about run out of time, but it's as ever been a pleasure to speak to you. I'll see you in a year's time.
Well, thank you. Yes, hold me to that. And if it doesn't happen, then it's there. There'll be reasons. But just to say thank you. And I would say that I think the Sports Foundation, and this is not down to me. It's down to the trustees. It's down to many others, the likes of the Edward Hills. Who runs the paddle and the tennis. It's other people who run the other clubs.
Yeah.
Mark Smith has done a lot around boxing. It's the school. It's Robert Kirkland. These are all the people. The football club. Going back all the way. A variety of people. The Concannon family. All these people that have helped in sport in Alderney. But what I would say is that I think we've proved as a sports foundation that we can get things done. The paddle courts are a testament to that. And I think that helped prove to the States of Alderney that we can get things done.
Yeah.
We're not just a matter
That's
of
important. That's important.
we can
Yeah.
put proper infrastructure projects in place. We did all that ourselves.
Yeah.
We didn't have any help. And therefore, if anyone who doesn't out there, who's listening to this, who doesn't donate to the Sports Foundation, £10 a year, £10 a month, it will help us. And all the money goes to the children. We don't have, I cover all the costs. There's no costs going for secretaries or travel or anything else. Every single penny raised goes directly back into the community.
That's great. And everyone on Alderney, in my view, should support it. So there we are. Anyway, very good to speak to you. And, as I say, we'll make a date in a year, possibly earlier than that. You can give us a progress report. Let's see how we go. Thank you very much, Simon. Been a great pleasure.
Cheers, Tony. Thanks.